Saquon Barkley might leave in free agency. I'm holding out hope, but I'm going to throw it to you, Sky, first, man. We got Saquon Barkley, 27 years old, coming off a very strong season, 10 touchdowns, 1,200 yards. Now, there are some rumors that the Giants want to see if he'll explore the market, and they'll probably match what he gets. But what are you feeling for Saquon Barkley? Do you have a landing spot in mind, or you think he's going back to the New York Giants?
Yeah, Bob, you and I have been over this for a couple of years. It's all love between us. We're here to talk business. This is a business relationship. Once we hit recording, personal love is out the window. So, I have love for you. But strictly talking business, the Giants blew it last year. Paying D. Jones was not the move. Paying Saquon Barkley potentially would have worked out. Daniel Jones got hurt and whatever. You can't knock him for the injury, but it just hasn't been as great as they thought it would be. So now that you have to franchise tag him again, they're not going to do that. So I do think that it's a foregone conclusion. And this isn't my call, by the way. You want to talk Niners, we could talk about how they didn't have a first down for a quarter and a half to start the second half, or didn't play defense in the second part of the overtime. But we're not here to do that. We're here to talk about Barkley. Saquon Barkley, unfortunately, Bob, I think could go to a divisional counterpart. Now, before I reveal who that might be, because all three of those teams could use Saquon Barkley. I think everybody in the NFL could. You rarely see a premier player going within division. DeAndre Hopkins most recently went from the Houston Texans to the Tennessee Titans. Very rarely does that actually happen, though. However, it just makes sense in this particular case. Now, we just talked about the Cowboys and Tony Pollard. I don't think they're going to sign Saquon Barkley. A lot of money. There's a lot of money out there with Dak and CeeDee Lamb and all that, and on defense as well. Commanders got a lot of movement there. Antonio Gibson's leaving probably, but they're not going to bring him in over Brian Robinson. They got to do the quarterback thing. I think it might be the Eagles. Matt brought it up top of the show. Just makes sense, man. I know this sucks for Giants fans. I'm sorry to bring it up this way, but in NFL terms, it makes perfect sense to me. And in fantasy, this would be incredible. So very few teams can kind of absorb the Saquon chunk of money. You brought up DeAndre Swift, but they're also potentially getting rid of Boston Scott and Rashad Penny. So that's three running backs that they're losing. That's about $10 million. Saquon Barkley's about $10 million as well. So it's a wash a bit there. And then you also get, of course, the dual threat running back. So not just a powerhouse running back all three downs, but he can catch the ball to take over for what DeAndre Swift was able to give you last year as well. And Saquon Barkley still in that not super old category for another year at 27 years old. DeAndre Swift is already 25. So it's not that much of a difference there. So unfortunately, for football, I think it's great. For Giants fans, not so much. But for me, it just makes sense that the Eagles go out there and make a splash on offense. They got wide receivers. They got their quarterback. Dallas Goedert's fine. New offensive coordinator. They're going to want a pass-catching running back like they had with Austin Eckler with the Chargers there. So for me, Saquon Barkley goes to the Eagles.
Matt, do you have any thoughts about Barkley going anywhere, or you think he's going back to New York?
We can't talk two catcher leagues because you told us that that's out for today.
Is that a thing? Is there like a baseball niche where you're like, oh, we'll do double? Is it like a double tight end league? Is that kind of like what the?
It's kind of like it's super flex-ish.
Super flex-ish.
Premium. Yeah, tight end premium league.
Oh, all right. Gotcha.
But what it does is it takes a relatively irrelevant position and requires that you start two of them. So it's really in depth.
Sounds horrible.
But yeah, it's relatively horrible. I won't bore you with that, but I do have a big draft coming Sunday. I'll call you afterwards. If I got two great catchers, you'll be one of the first ones to know, Bob. So good on you for answering the phone.
I'm not going to do that now. Now I know what the call's about. I'm not answering the phone call. Last time you called me, you were drunk and you were upset about something. That's all I can tell you. So if you do call me, I know you didn't get your double catcher you wanted. That's what I'll know.
Yes, we all have our burdens to bear, right? So
yes,
I may have been tossed that night, but I don't even remember what it was for. So it obviously wasn't that important. I agree. If Saquon's not going back to New York, he's just not going to do it. He's getting beat up there. He's not winning. Money's not everything for these guys, right? Most of them have enough money to live for the rest of their lives. So I think he wants to win. Sky mentioned DeAndre Swift being 25. He's a really young 25. He doesn't have a lot of tread taking off his tires. He hasn't been a workhorse for a while. So if they want to bring him back, they could do that and probably mix in with him Barkley, and that would be a nice 1-2 punch. I don't think they'll do that. I think they're going to get rid of all their running backs to include Darren Sproles. and Brian Westbrook, so they won't have anybody. It looks like it's Saquon for me. The other landing spot I can see him going to a new offensive coordinator that kind of doesn't like to throw the football is Greg Roman. So maybe he ends up going across country to Sky's Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, there was some rumors about him potentially going to the Chargers, like as like a team, but we'll talk about the Chargers today. But for the Giants, like there really isn't many options for them. Like they don't have like Danny Gray is like the backup. They don't have like a guy that it's not like it's Josh Jacobs, who we'll talk about in a second, where it's Zamir White flash. You know, if Josh Jacobs walks, they know what they have. Danny Gray has not shown that. The other thing is like they don't, like if they let Saquon Barkley walk, they don't have the talent around Daniel Jones. Like, can we start by just keeping the freaking talent around it? You pay a quarterback and then you dump the talent. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, don't do that. Like, if you dump the talent, dump it on defense. I'm sorry, but you cannot dump the talent around him. And if Barkley leaves, then they better go out and get a number one wide receiver. The only alternative for the Giants I see is they could potentially go with Devin Singletary from his ties with Brian Daboll. Maybe Damian Harris. I could see like that Bills correlation. Like if they lose out on Barkley, they're going to have to go out, get somebody. There's guys like Derrick Henry, CEH type deeper names that you could kind of look at maybe for some deep ties to them. But honestly, if they don't get Barkley back,